The impudence, the audacity, the unmitigated gall of those knuckleheads of liberty podcasters, daring to voice opinions outside the mainstream of accepted thought. Listen if you dare. It's angry, it's funny, it's even sometimes sad, but it's always based on freedom and justice, as you will see. Here's our host, Jason McPhee.
Welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty. We are coming at you on January 30th, 2023, and we have a special break today from our normal drudgery of politics to talk about libertarians in public office. And it's so important, I guess, to help get the message out and help inspire others to run. And so today we have Joseph Cimaomo, and he is the recently elected to the City Council of Covington City, Washington. So in the state of Washington, he's also the LP chair of King, Pierce, and Cimaomo, I guess.
Cimaomo.
Cimaomo. Okay. I guess counties there in Washington as well. So welcome, Joe, to the show. We definitely want to hear a little bit more about your experience. And one of the things we always like to ask to all of our guests, so I want to get that out of the way right away. How did you come to discover liberty? Because, almost all of us, we go through the public education system. We don't really learn it there. That's for sure. So how did you discover it?
So I'm going to just go ahead and say this, that politics wasn't a big thing in my house growing up. I would talk to my parents about the elections. I remember the 92 election. I was going to be 7 just after the election. I remember talking to my parents, who are you voting for? Libertarianism wasn't a huge thing in Washington in 1992, so we didn't talk about whoever the candidate was then. So don't ask me. My libertarian history isn't as good as some people would like it to be. But and then just talking about that, and then reading basically history itself, because I love history. I study history. I'm actually finishing up my degree in history right now. And it's just reading about it and understanding what truly the founders wanted versus what's actually happening has led me to, well, I'm going to take it a few steps further than what they wanted, because I want less of what they wanted. I want it to be even more free than that, and just bringing to that realm of, I don't think the two parties are even doing it anymore. And I left the Republican Party in 2016 and went full bore libertarian, just because of all the reading I had done, all the following, just listening to people like Justin Amash, Rand Paul, earlier Ron Paul, the early 2000s Ron Paul, stuff like that. Just reading and listening to all that stuff is what led me more towards the libertarian spectrum of politics.
Yeah, it's amazing how much of a difference Ron Paul has made in connecting so many of us with the Libertarian Party. And James, our invisible hand, can you get up the screen too? So this is the City Council page for Covington, and you can see Joe over there. And Joe also has a Facebook page too, in case you want to try and connect a little bit there with what he's doing as well. And by the way, too, I forgot, because we had the special guest, I forgot to introduce the rest of our panel. So let me do that right now. At our top, we have Leon the Word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. And in the bottom here, we have our screaming eagle of freedom, Tim Everett. He is a pilot in the state of California. So anyways, let you guys jump in. Did any guys want to jump in at this point?
No, I would like to know are you presently on the council, on the City Council of Covington?
Yes. Yeah. I am in year 2 of my 3rd term on the City Council.
I see. So in terms of libertarian philosophy, in terms of the principles that libertarians espouse, or people, let me change that to liberty-minded people espouse. How do you see that in practice in your day-to-day life on the council?
So my day-to-day life, our big thing in Covington is we're a really working class town. We have Boeing engineers, we have pilots for the airlines, because we're really close to SeaTac Airport, so a lot of pilots live out in this area. We have school teachers, we have stay-at-home moms. We have a mix of every aspect of life here. So my goal as a Libertarian council member and espousing my views is making sure taxes don't get raised. I can honestly say in my 3 terms now in Covington, I voted for 1 tax increase, and it was because if we didn't vote for it, the county was going to vote for it, and the county was not going to be as nice to us as if we were the ones collecting it instead. So I said, I'm going to vote for this because I don't trust King County. And King County is one of the most liberal counties in Washington, but everywhere in California makes King County look conservative. So I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry.
You don't need to apologize. We live that every day.
Yeah, I'm from California originally, so I understand. But we have, but I understand what we need to do, where we need to go. But my philosophy always is I want the people of Covington to be able to speak for themselves and be able to do what they want to, and understanding that they choose to live in Covington for reasons, and those reasons are we have low taxes, low crime, and we are making the city better for them in all aspects, but we're always being responsible to the people and listening to them and hearing them out. And that's the way I go.
Are you the only Libertarian on the council?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Well, that's interesting in the fact that you brought up the comparison to California. So Cato has this really nice chart that compares the different states of how they're doing with liberty. So just to give a sense of where people are getting elected to as libertarians, it's kind of nice. And Washington doesn't compare well, to the rest of them. It's 39 out of 50 according to Cato, but much better than California at 48 out of 50. So you're looking great up there by comparison. And it's cool. They give these different metrics for comparing the different ways that you can dive in a little bit, disaggregate that. And but anyways, I thought it was kind of a nice thing to be able to show the audience, kind of how things are going. Do you find that your job as a libertarian in office is to sort of educate other politicians as well? I mean, do you find yourself doing that a lot?
I find myself, we discuss a lot. So as much as people like to say that elected officials don't get along with each other, we're always at each other's throats. The nice thing about the city of Covington is that we're all very amicable. We're all mostly friends. We all have, a lot of us have kids in the school system still. So we're always talking with each other about the schools, about their sports and all that stuff. So when it comes to educating about things, we have those conversations that we want people to have when it comes to politics of, well, this is why I don't want us to raise taxes. This is why I think we need to be doing this. And we give our reasons, and I feel like it is an education process. And when I discuss why I feel this way, but it's also a way for us to understand where each other are coming from. I can honestly say I have won over a couple people on a few votes we've done over the years, but it's still one of those that we all have our where we're at and where we will be comfortable with, and then what we hope to achieve. And my hope to achieve is to get the other 6 members to all come from wherever they are on the spectrum to the libertarian philosophy. And if I can win them over on one vote, I consider it a success. And I've gotten them a few times, but.
Is school choice an issue that you guys face in Covington or in King County in general?
It's an issue in Washington State. There's school choice campaigns in King County because King County is the most populated county in Washington. If only the citizens of Seattle voted, it would equal out to roughly it's almost 1 million people in just Seattle. So comparison to cities in California, it's not that big. But if only Seattle voted, we would never have school choice and we'd have taxes through the roof. But when the rest of the state votes and then King County votes, King County sways the rest of the state. So it is we do have a lot of advocacy for school choice in Washington and King County in specifically, but it's one of those, it's not gaining the momentum because in Washington, one of the largest donators to our state representatives is the Washington Education Association. So
we always find them wherever we go. We always find them, the teachers unions. Yeah.
Well, one of the big issues a few years back, we had a decision. There was a lawsuit, and it was because saying that the way school bonds were done was not working for the smaller school districts, and it was better for the bigger school districts. And the WEA wound up giving donations to the state Supreme Court, who was deciding the cases too. And I was like, that's not right, in my opinion. So when it comes to school choice, we definitely need more school choice, but along with that, we need campaign finance reform in Washington, because I don't think the WEA should have been giving to Supreme Court justices for their reelection campaign when they had a school choice thing basically before them. So,
oh yes,
yeah, a little conflict of interest.
Yeah, a large conflict of interest, in my opinion.
to say the least. Yes.
Well, James, maybe we could bring up the visual again. One of the things I also forgot to go over too is just sort of the political flavor of Washington as well. Aside from how it's standing with Liberty, it's highly Democrat. So it looks like almost all the state elected offices are either nonpartisan or Democrat, and certainly most of the representatives too are Democrats, and both senators are Democrats. So you're definitely in a blue state up there.
Yeah, we're in a very blue state. I'm in a very blue county. I know we're libertarians and all, but it's funny, in King County, it used to be a pretty good mix of Democrat and Republicans elected to the state house. In King County now, there's only three seats in our state legislature that are not held by Democrats, and unfortunately, we have to. King County can't even claim them all because their districts are part of Pierce County as well. So it's one of those ones there's basically no one but Democrats elected in King County to the state legislature.
What do you attribute that to? Because of course that's the California story. And it's like, what happened? Did just conservative thinkers just suddenly stop thinking, or what happened?
So a big thing, and in King County, a big thing is Donald Trump. And I don't like bringing that up because we're libertarians. We don't care about him at all to begin with. But the way a lot of the more independent voters in King County started to go was that we don't like Donald Trump. We like some of the conservative things. We like some of the liberal things. And those are the ones, when we talk libertarianism, those are the ones we, as the Libertarian Party of Washington, tries to get to, is those independent voters first. But they just stopped supporting the conservative candidates because the conservatives went full bore Donald Trump mode, and the independents were like, well, we don't like this. We don't want that. And it's not good for Washington. There's only one city in King County that Donald Trump won in 2016. And I think 2020, he might not have won that city at all. So it's one of those, it was a national politics played a lot into why that is.
So did people mainly just shift to Democrat, or did Libertarians see any benefit from that there in Washington?
So Libertarians, we've not traditionally done well on statewide ballot races. So we had a few years ago, 2016, was it 1 year we had for the Attorney General, we had a Libertarian candidate run against the Democrat, and they did well. But the big issue is that we don't run a lot of candidates for the bigger positions, and we have a top two primary system in Washington. It's a jungle primary. Everyone can vote, and the duopoly throws money in there like there's no tomorrow to get their candidates in there. And then recently in my legislative district, we had in one of the seats for the state house, we had 2 Democrats and 3 or 4 Republicans. And unfortunately, 2 of those Republicans have ran before and have never gotten past 42% in a general election. But they thought, well, this is our year. And in reality, they really screwed the pooch for everything. And we were stuck with a Democrat and then a really bad Democrat.
Yeah, one of the things we've discussed on this show before and we've heard about is the idea that with this limiting of the top 2 vote getters, it winds up really hurting third parties because sometimes what parties will do is they will run a second candidate just to eliminate the chance of any third party getting on the ballot. So it can be very challenging.
It is. And there's a big, like, I'm not the world's largest fan of ranked choice voting, but I've come to understand it to be better for primaries at the least when it comes to stuff like this, because we will get better candidates that way. And we had an unaffiliated, no party preference, completely independent candidate for Secretary of State in Washington who runs all of our elections. And she was a very big advocate for ranked choice voting. And a lot of Republicans who saw that, oh, well, Sarah Palin, our Trump supporting friend in Alaska, is getting screwed over by ranked choice voting. So we can't support this because it's just screwing us over. It's like, no, their reasoning is stupid for not supporting it. But my reasoning is it screws over my favorite college football team most of the time
I mean, I understand why you need some sort of reform in terms of your primary elections and all that. But why not allow? I mean, why not support each party producing their own candidate for the general elections?
I think that's what we should do. Is each party should be able to support that, and then the primaries shouldn't. I'm a firm believer in closed primaries also. So the Democrats aren't going to go and say, well, my candidate A, who I support, is going to win it. So I'm going to go in there and I'm going to vote in the Republican one so it goes this way. Or I'm going to vote in the Libertarian one so it goes this way. I think we need to do reform the primaries to be closed primaries, and then you could do it that way so you're not having those issues. But that's just my thought. But no one at the state level's ever asked me my opinion on this. So
I had a question for you. Was there a particular thing that sort of a bee in your bonnet that got you to run for your position? Because I know, some people, they say, oh, well, there was something, maybe they raised your utility rates, or you saw something else in government that you didn't like or something. Just curious.
My reason was purely selfish. In 2013, it was just my wife, my oldest son, and I. We had a dog at the time and 2 cats. And the cats are still around. And there was nowhere for us in the city to go and recreate. We had no great place. We have one park that you have to drive backwards through a neighborhood to get to. And inside that park, and the park was always overgrown. There was always needles everywhere. It was not well maintained because the city couldn't get into it. So, but we fixed that problem since then. But there was no place for us to recreate. There was no place for young families who were trying to make Covington their home to recreate. And that was a big thing for me. Is we need places to recreate. If we want people to make Covington their home, we don't want them on the weekends going, to Seattle to take their kids, or to Tacoma to take their kids. We want them to stay in the city, enjoy what we have here, and build up our city to make it better. And so mine was, I want my kids to be able to stay in the city and have fun on their weekends. And that was what it was. And we've done a good job at that. We're working on that even more every year. So I can say that my purely selfish reason has turned out to be very good for me and for the rest of the community.
Just at a philosophical level, do you believe that the opening and maintenance, the development and maintenance of parks is a function of government?
On a philosophical level, so in my community, we've actually had a lot more volunteers to go in there and maintain the parks and to do it on their own. They've bought their own equipment to do it. They've rented equipment. They've done it. But I think it's, as a philosophy, it is local government. We're going to talk local government. I think it is a responsibility of local government to ensure that the residents have a safe place to recreate. And if that means that they're going in there making sure that there's no needles, they're making sure that there's no major issues, drainage issues, stuff like that, fields are flooded. I think that's a thing of local government, because my big thing in libertarianism is keep it local. Everything, it should all be localized. Whereas the national stuff, that's different. I think that a lot of that can be privatized. But on the local issues, I think a local government has a responsibility to their community to making sure open spaces are safe and maintained to a point. But the more people who want to volunteer to do that cleanup, the better. And I'm a firm believer that local volunteerism in action is one of the best ways we can make local areas better. And the more people who want to help maintain those open spaces means that we don't have to use as many resources in the city to do it.
Yeah, so certainly the more local, the better in all government, because it means you've got better access to those people who represent you, and certainly it's more. I guess you can hold them to account much better than you can at the federal level.
Exactly.
I had a question for you. What are some of the challenges you've faced since going into office, especially as a libertarian? Have you seen certain things, or just like
I think
movable object?
I think the biggest issue here in Washington is not people in general. It's all of the mandates that are coming down from our state government, all of the mandates coming down from the county telling us how we have to do things. And they're always unfunded, of course. They're always like, well, you have to do this. It's going to cost you $10 million, and we're not giving you a dime to do it. So it's one of those, I'm a firm believer. I'm firmly against those mandates, and that's been the rock and the hard place for us, is we have to do this in order to do exactly what we've been trying to do, but we're not getting any help to do it. And I have a perfect example. We have been trying to fix a portion of road for over a decade, but because it goes over a stream that on occasions has salmon run through it, we had to get permits and reporting from the state, and permits and reporting from the Army Corps of Engineers. The Army Corps of Engineers took 3 years to look at our stuff, so much so that we had to go back and get new permits from the state. And it's like, we've been trying to do this, and we're finally at the place where we're able to fix it. And it's still, I'm sure the Army Corps of Engineers is going to come back and tell us we did it wrong.
You know what's funny about that story too is it's one level of government having trouble with another level of government. So it's like we always think of individuals having all these permits and everything else, but government having to get permits from government.
It is. I mean, and that's in reality, that's our tough spot, is we all want to go out there and do certain things, but it's the mandates that are coming down from the state that are preventing us from doing it in a way to help our residents. But one of my other issues is we've had issues where we want to, like, I don't know your guys' response, but we used to have it where trash was optional. You didn't have to go into a contract with the local trash hauler, and it was your option. You could do it. We didn't force it. You could self-haul to the local site, and then they would take care of it there and take it to the dump. Well, a few years back, we mandated trash, and I was the most ardent person against mandating trash. It was like I took a stand against trash. And I think it was a month or 2 month long process for me to be arguing against trash, where I'm like, I want my trash hauled away. Don't get me wrong. I'm not hauling my trash, but I don't think it should be required that the city is requiring our residents to enter this contract. And I was the only one who felt that way. But I also read the tea leaves and was like, I can block another way if I vote this way, and it's going to be a deadlock and it's going to stop everything. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to vote against my conscience, but I'm going to deadlock everything if I do it this way. And so, I became the hard place at one point. So
which raises a very interesting point. I mean, I think politics is the art of compromise. So how much of your principles do you have to compromise to get things done as a member of the city council?
In all honesty, when it comes to compromise, there's a council member in a city about 45 minutes away from me. And he has said it this way: it's the compromise I make is not to pass bad bills or pass bad legislation. It's to pass legislation that's less bad. So my compromise is trying to make it, if it's a bad piece of legislation, in my opinion, to make it less bad and more good for the people that it's going to affect. So I don't see it more as a compromise. I see it more as a negotiation to make things better off of the bad. So I say that, and I maybe have to do that 10 to 15% of the time.
Joe, we're starting to get close to the end of the show, and there was a couple questions I wanted to ask you, and I'll just throw them both out there, and you answer whichever one you would prefer. But one is, for anybody who's watching and they want to get involved, I guess, what was the electoral process like for you? Was it very challenging, and did you get help from the Libertarian Party? The other thought is, do you have any final thoughts as well that you'd like to share? So I'll let you take that however you want to handle it.
So to answer the first one, if you want to run, research what you want to run. If you want to run for the city council and the election's not until 2024, go to every meeting in 2023 and figure out if that's what you want to do. Read everything that comes through and figure it out. Go to your county elections page, find out what you need to do, find out how much money you may need to raise. When I ran, I got help from the Libertarians. I got walking lists. They helped me raise some money. None of them came out to pound signs for me, so I'm still angry at that one. But there's that. And then, what was the other question? Sorry.
Well, are there any last thoughts you'd like to share with the audience too, as far as just anybody who's listening to you that you'd want to leave something with them?
Remember, liberty dies at the sound of applause. Pretty much that line from Star Wars. Be active. Be as active as you can be. Even if you're not running for something, be a voice for change. Every city council in Washington, at least, I don't know what California's rules are, you have time for public comment. Give your comment, give what you're thinking, but be polite about it.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Joe. And James, maybe as we go out, you could share his page again just so people can see it. You can find him on his Facebook page at Councilmember Joseph Cimaomo Jr., and you can check him out. And thanks so much for joining us today, Joe. And thank you to our audience for joining us. And until the next one, stay free.
Yes, indeed. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.